What's up, Candy Ken? What's up, Baby J? How's it going?
Not today.
Candy Ken and Baby J.
It's Candy Ken.
Welcome to the Candy Ken Show.
For the pods?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we want to like make it seasonal and switch it up. Like I was thinking like some slime or glitter, depending on like what's
But
possible.
you're renting this space, so you can turn this room into whatever you want.
Yeah. But it's also about like what you can find on the market, kind of, to make this wall like crazy.
I think you should have like a decoration party. Like something. There's gotta be a way. I mean, I see a bubble machine in here. Not foam. I'm like bubble. That might not be good for the equipment.
Ready, Ken?
Uh-huh.
Oh, we're already in.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, action.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Candy Ken Show. Man, when I go to the gym, there's not a lot of people I respect. But there's one lady I respect a lot.
Mm.
And we've been doing CrossFit together. I don't know how long.
I mean, what's funny, I think you and I have both been doing it for over 10 years, but kind of separately. And we've only intersected now at Brick for like the last 6 months. Don't you think it's been or the last year?
Probably. Also, I was on and off because I moved to the Valley, didn't like it, and then I kind of like took half a year off of Brick, and now I'm kind of back.
Yeah. Of course. But there's something to be said about taking different parts of your training schedule in other areas and kind of getting seasoned by other programming and seeing what works and where your body responds. So, but yeah, I think because you were gone, I missed you. And now that you're at Brick, we're BFFing.
Man, and I always wanted to have like athletes on this show because this show it's about like influencers.
Yeah.
We have like some TikTokers, OnlyFans girls,
Mm-hmm.
dentists. But then big part of my life is health and working out, obviously. So for me, having athletes on is like detrimental. Like I have to have an athlete on.
Mm-hmm.
You're the first athlete and a woman, which is even cooler, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
It's like still like when I go to the gym, it's mostly guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we go to a gym in West Hollywood.
Yeah.
I'm one of 2 women in a class, maybe, and one of the only ones that kind of like are as muscular as you are, So it's. I was actually, it was my biggest question. I was like, man, I wonder why he hasn't had, athletes in his podcast, or is it because you're just finally now ready to kind of share that part of your life? Because how you exist, we were actually just talking about your brother, Julius, who I met the other day. And I'm sure that you guys have seen Julius on your Instagram and stuff, but he's, a little bit more slender and definitely at the beginning of his fitness career. And you had just said, wow, it's cool to see him because it's where I was. And I think you sharing your progression in fitness is a perfect microcosm for people that are in any kind of process of their lives, anything where they're starting somewhere, whether it's like a career, a relationship, a new health goal, and here you are at the other side of it. And you talk about influence. What greater influence is there when you can influence someone's health or happiness? And for you to be bringing your worlds together makes me just so excited to be here.
Absolutely, yeah. Because it's hard for me I don't have like too many athletes friends kind of, because I've been in the social media world for so long.
Yeah.
And I go to the gym and then I go home. Like I don't meet anybody like from the gym outside of the gym.
Yeah.
And every time I meet somebody from the gym outside of the gym, it's like kind of like we just have the gym in common and nothing else kind of. So it's like outside of the gym, I do like a lot of other stuff. And then
as you should, because if you're only doing the gym, you're gonna. But
when I was thinking about athletes, you were like right there, and I was like, how did I not like? Obviously, and then when I looked you up, I was like, shit, like you have all this shit going on for yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have no idea who you're working out with.
Well, gosh, what a sentence. That was kind of the beauty of me coming to Brick. So to give a synopsis, so for me, I'm about to be 41, but I started CrossFitting when I was like 29. So I was younger and but I had done a history of sports. So I did college rowing and then college hammer throw. And before that, I was doing gymnastics. So when I got out of college in like 2005 or 6, everyone's like, you would be great at this CrossFit thing. And I was like, what is it? No, I don't care. That sounds stupid. I'm not doing it. And so another 6 years go by, and finally someone, the owner of Horsepower, Dan Wells, approached me. He's like, you really should do CrossFit. And again, I was just like really not interested, because I mean, call it ego, call it exhaustion. I had done sports my entire life, and the way I say it, like, I've won my awards. I've stood on my podiums. I've done Division I sports and gone to nationals and been a big part of that experience. And so to get the mindset to re-gear into competing again and committing physically to the kind of training that CrossFit requires, I wasn't sure I was interested in. So, and then the ego side of it was like, yeah, we got a girl that can snatch 135. And I was like, I did 200 pounds in college. Like, for me, 135 is a joke. Now, I want to be clear, it's not a joke, but like, to me, that was my mindset. And I was like, so it's not like real. It's not that hard. And so he's like, just come to one class. And I got buried because it was like power cleans and burpees and something else. And what drew me into CrossFit ultimately was this door I didn't want to walk through, because it was so challenging for me and it was so scary for me to get my heart rate like that and then try to do these big lifts I used to do, that I was like, you can't walk away from this. And if you're going to be good at anything in life, like, you have to conquer this fear that holds you back from trying things. And that's why I kept going to CrossFit. Because, like, true story, and I have teammates that will tell you this, I would go to Horsepower, and if there was like running on the workout or burpees, I would fake it like I just came to buy a protein bar and leave. I would just skip the workout. I was so scared of looking stupid or doing a bad job. And so, talk about friendships. Like, the reason I kept going was the men and women that I met that I'm still friends with over, 10 years later. And I've seen them through marriage and building families and career changes and moving. And you start to realize that the fact that part of my life, which I invested so much in, like you are, and have been as well, you realize there's this opportunity to create another little world and a little family. So for me, being a sleeper on your radar, coming back to the beginning of what you started to say, I was kind of coming back into brick. Like, I hadn't done CrossFit in a while. I'd been on the road. I'm coming off the pandemic. So I hadn't been doing, like, nobody had been doing a lot. And I was kind of nervous. I'm like, am I just going to be bad? Am I going to be, you know what I mean?
Doing your entire life sport, you're intimidated by CrossFit.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which is insane, because like now I think about like somebody who has never done sports,
right?
Like my brother.
Sure.
Like, because in Austria, all we do is like academics. There's no school sports or any kind of that stuff.
Really?
There's like PE, and they call it a day. Like, that's it. There's no colors and no Friday game nights and all this stuff. So that was like a shocker too. When I first came to the States, I did an exchange year when I was 17.
Okay.
I think that was in like 2017. Man, we're getting.
Oh, hello, hello, pumpkin. Anyway, we got interrupted.
I did. So I failed all my English classes, and I was like, "Fuck this! I don't want to learn any vocabulary anymore. So I'll just go to the States."
Yeah,
which I always wanted to do. So I came here for 1 year. I went to high school, and I'm like, wow, I'm the most unfit fucking kid in here. Like, every kid is
really
faster, stronger. And just, these kids are insane, like, compared to Austria. Like these football players, like, of course, like, in the team, I'm saying, like, in the football team.
What state did you move into?
Washington State.
Washington State, okay.
Yeah, I went to a little town called Wenatchee, and I was like, I completely changed, like, everything about me, because I was always, like, the creative nerd in the back of the class. So when I came to the States, I was like, nobody knows me. I'm going to just say I'm a stud now. I'm going to be that football player that I always wanted to be. They don't know. They don't know me. You don't know me. So I went by the name Jacob back then. So I told everybody, like, I'm gonna join the team. I joined the team, and I found out I'm the most unfit person. Like, that's what I felt like. So that's where I was like, I'll never want to be in that situation again, and I'll just work my ass off. And I had a friend who had the L1 in CrossFit. It just came out. It was really just the beginning of it, and I did my first workout almost threw up. And then I was hooked from the very first, just like body weight. It was like,
Do you remember your first workout?
it was just like push-up, pull-ups, running.
It was probably maybe Cindy or something like
something
that.
like that. Like we did the hero workouts, and
Yes.
And I got hooked right away, instantly. I was like, I didn't want to do anything else after that. And going back to like, and then I remember when I went to LA for the first time, I walked into the first CrossFit gym here, and I was so intimidated. There was people snatching, dropping weights. I was like, what the fuck is this? Almost landed on me. I felt like, right? There was a good friend of me now. He was snatching and dropped the bar. And it's just crazy, even doing sports before. So I always feel like if you've never done sports, it must be insane to go to a CrossFit gym.
Well, like your brother Julius. Yeah. So it's interesting because I do feel like I'm a bit more of a snob than I am when it comes to sports, because like what I saw in CrossFit was an opportunity to be challenged in so many ways. Hi. And hi. Okay. Thank you. Sit. Come on.
Let's go.
She's like, but I want to be front row. You can, okay. You can stay here. So, what I saw was this opportunity to be challenged and using really, really simplistic functional movements that we've been using for decades in the health and fitness world. Like, because by trade, I'm a personal trainer, and that's where my degree is in sports administration, managing bodies, anatomy, psychology, people, and wellness. And so I saw this, like, wow, what a great way to bring people into working out in a way that's bite-sized and it's clear, and there are, very specific, repeatable movements that you can do. And I was like, this is really neat. But the other side of that, I was like, oh, we have someone like your brother who's never really done sports or athletics comes in and it's a snatch workout and they learn snatch the first day. And I'm like, that's an issue for me. So from a technician standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, our number one job is forward progress without injury. And so when you have such new people that are still learning what I call physical literacy, where their body is in space, what certain position means. If I say something to you, do you interpret it the way I meant it? And if you do, can you get your body in that position? So there are all these layers to that. And so what CrossFit did is you are thrusted into these potentially harmful situations if you're not in the right hands with the right coach. And so for me, I loved it. And I was a little soured at times because sometimes we'd have WODs, like for the open, that was like, snatching super heavy weight. Like in a snatch, you have to understand is a very dynamic but graceful move. I look at snatching like I do teeing off in golf. And so it's like asking me to hit 5 max snatches in a row under time, under cardio duress is the same as me asking Tiger Woods to sprint a 400-meter run, grab his club, and tee off 5 in a row as fast as he can for time. And then we're going to calculate your distance. It's like, so we're taking really beautiful movements and athleticism, and then we're putting it into a different container. And so that's why I was like, under the right conditions, it's an incredible sport and place to learn. But again, like we're at Brick, and we've talked about this. The programming is so great, but now since you're so advanced, it's almost not hard enough for you in certain workouts because you want more, you crave more. But for Julius, it's the perfect programming. So,
it becomes very difficult when you have a class of like 30, 40 people.
Yep.
And everybody's on a different level. And now everybody wants to get a good workout out of it. But this is also like where CrossFit becomes interesting, because if people would scale the right amount,
yes,
it would be good for everybody.
Yes.
And I think the whole scaling thing is problematic because people always want to RX.
But don't you think that's up to the coach? That's the one, like for me, when I would coach CrossFit, I'd say, let's say I'm watching you snatch and you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, Candy, if I can't see 3 in a row proper form, you have to drop. That's on me to create that line and also have established respect with you. And that's the other part of it. You have to respect your coach. Like if Pedro said, Jen, that weight doesn't look good on you, got to drop. I wouldn't argue with Pedro because I trust him. So there is that, but that comes with knowing your body and knowing yourself. And you and I talked about this too, like the ego of wanting to be a part of that race and chasing something down. You know, sometimes I've grabbed weight that I shouldn't be doing just because I want to see my score against somebody else that's doing the full weight. And talking yourself off that ledge takes a lot of personal convincing, you know?
Have you always like, so you've been into sports like your whole life, you said?
Yeah, you know, my parents, I'm three, I'm one of three. My parents started all of us doing gymnastics since we were really little, like, and I ended up doing more sports. And I think we were just always very physical. Like my parents, to this day, they're married 50 years. They've grown their own vegetables. We have a garden plot and we rototill and we do. And so we've been a very physical family. So I think being physical was just a part of our lives. But then I did gymnastics my whole life. And then college, I did the sports all 5 years. And so movement's always been a part of it's been a part of my day no matter what.
And what about your siblings?
So my sister, she's like tatted up, super cool, great with music, plays drums, clarinet, sax. Like she's that world, and like has such raw strength, but like has never used it, kind of a thing. But it's there. Like I feel like she could lift a car. And then my brother is this kind of marriage between two of us. He's done some sports, but like kind of like teetered out and stopped. But when he was 15 and like he was doing powerlifting just for fun and was like beating national records as a 15-year-old, like at this random gym in, Chicago. And he was like, "Oh, I'm okay. I don't really care." You know what I mean? But he just was like, he didn't even know how much weight it would be. And he would just like bench it or squat it, so physical family, but I'm the only one that really took sports all the way.
And do you have an explanation like why, what like makes a difference? Like, was that like born into you? Is that like raised in? Like me having like a boy now,
Yeah.
I ask myself every day, how can I make him an athlete? Right? Because it's hard as a dad. Like I cannot, like if he gets fat, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like
I think the pathway for parents, because I have worked with kids a lot, you have to allow them to find their path and nurture what I would say activity in their lives, nurture movement. So you talked about how like you guys only have PE in Austria. Like we're in America now, sometimes people have PE. Now kids only have it like maybe once a week or twice a week. We used to have it every day. And so to us, like my parents were just like, "You guys aren't staying home after school. You're going to go do something. So if you want to do band, you can do band. You want to do a sport, you can do sport. Like you have to go. If you want to do photography class, you're going to do something." So my parents like pushed like being a part of social expansive creative things or like participating in different communities. But as far as movement, like you don't know if they're going to want to be an athlete. They have that edge. And sometimes you see like parents push their kids too hard.
Yeah, and then they turn 180.
And they don't want to do it. And I've seen that a lot. And then the other side is like they undernourish and then activity feels so far away from them that they don't want to even try it. And so that's why I always recommend, like, again, when I said this, we started in gymnastics. There are these, I used to teach them, like, if your kid's 4 or 5 years old, there's a park district nearby. And there's like these little classes where like you walk the beam and you do seat jumps on the trampoline and you have them jump off a mat into like a pile of like, other cubes. You need them to get familiar with their bodies. Because for me as a trainer, I get people who, instead of being taught to go walk or to go play or get outside and get dirty or jump in the water and the puddles and explore and use their bodies to experience life, they are watching an iPad or a parent's phone or something like that. And so, and then when they come to me in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, and they don't have a sense of their body, whether it's confidence, a resiliency. Like, if your heart rate goes up, you're like, I know what this is. So for some people, they're like, "This feels weird. I feel I'm breathing hard. This feels funny." I go, yeah, you're alive. Congratulations, you're alive. You're going to be okay. But so if it's not introduced more early, they have a lot of inhibition of going. And so I see it in people that they're nervous to even go to the gym for the first time. I go, don't be nervous. I mean, everybody you were a beginner at one point. So was I. And when you're a beginner, people love beginners because we were beginners too. And so we see ourselves in those people starting. And so we're super helpful. And whether it's a Globo gym, like a 24-hour fitness or a CrossFit gym, you're gonna be met with support, not judgment. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I'm answering your question because it's really not up to you. You're giving your kid great genetics, but I think it's connecting them to movement, and the joy around playing is going to be what fuels him.
And I feel like leading by example.
Yeah.
Like I feel like even with my wife, I get up every morning at 6 or at 5. I go in the cold plunge. I don't sit around.
You're brave.
After the cold, I do 3 minutes in 37 Fahrenheit, and then I get on the rogue bike and I do 50 calories. And that's how I start my day. And then I go to the gym after that. So for me, even not being like fat and sloppy around her makes her like be like, yo, like, I got to get my shit together because it's like, it's affecting everything around you. Like, if you're so determined and so focused and like you have so much discipline on yourself, it really, like if I have an athlete next to me, it like bugs me. Like I remember this one time I went over to Logan Paul's house and everybody was around him and he was working out and everybody was just watching him working out. I for me, like that eats me. Like I cannot watch and not be doing it myself, like kind of.
So, I mean, there's so many things happening here. So the peer pressure that you're putting on your wife is fantastic, right? Like when I think in any partnership, we're not always like ebb and flowing in the same cadence, right? So you may be energized and feeling good and she might be the opposite. You know what I mean? You don't know. We're all individually processing emotion, feeling, change in our bodies and everything. And so when you're going, you can be the inspiration for her to meet you there. And she'll be there for you in other ways. Maybe you're the inspiration for movement and health and all that. But maybe she's the one that makes you laugh harder than anybody else. Maybe she's the one that gets you out of your head and out of your focus and lets you like let your hair down, so to speak. So you can just kind of like, okay, and remind you of how good life is and the life that you've built for your family. So that we offer that peer pressure to do it. The people watching the workout and not doing it, I think that often comes down to insecurity. They don't want to expose what they don't know or what they can't do, which is so silly because it's like, oh, if you want to move slow, if you don't want to do as much weight, if you don't want to, nobody's caring. We actually like just want people doing it together. So the voyeuristic component is really interesting.
Do you feel that too, or?
Like I get a little shy. I felt like even today we had to do that crazy run in the beginning and all that stuff. And Pedro put me with 3 of our best athletes in class. They grouped us up together. And I was like, I'm in the wrong group. Because I'm more of a fast twitch athlete. I can be very strong and very effective for anything under 10 seconds. You want me on your team. But when you start to get into like a mile run and a 2K bike, and I start to like, I'm like, I know that's not my strength, but I get in my head and I'm better than I give myself credit for. But I was like, oh God, I'm in the wrong group. And Pedro's like, you're in the right group. Shut up, with love. And then we're going and I was like, oh, I'll just do a different route. And Brandon goes, no, you're going to run with us. Don't do a different route. Because I was worried that I was going to be so far behind them that I was going to look stupid. And this is me, a trainer that's done this. I teach this, and I ran with them and I did great. I wasn't behind. I was right step for step for them. So sometimes I do think when doubt starts to seep in, for whatever reason, I don't think we have to figure out the source of everything. Sometimes things just are. You have to do it to prove yourself wrong. And that was today for me. And so with that support and, of those 3 people that were in my group, I was able to do it. And I like left today, like feeling like She-Ra. I'm like, I'm a superhero. I can do what I thought I couldn't. And that's it. So it happens to me for sure. But I like to use it like judo a little bit, like use that energy against it, throw myself into a space I'm not comfortable to have evidence that I got this.
Yeah, sometimes I see you all the way in the back of the class. I'm like, what the hell is she doing all the way back there?
Exactly.
Like I always put myself in the where everybody can see me.
Yeah.
The more people, the better, kind of.
Yeah, that was our deadlift day, and I
When
was
you were like recording, that's even
Correct.
better. Like the more eyes are on,
yeah,
then I don't even feel that was like the easiest lift of the 8
yeah,
because you were like on it,
Filming
and
you.
then I don't have to think about it anymore. I'll get it
totally.
done.
Dude, performance is real. Like having a healthy ego, I think is great. A little bit of vanity goes a long way. You're like, I'm gonna crush this. I'm gonna pick up this bar and I'm gonna do it. And you're like, there you go. So I use it to your advantage.
And
Yeah.
crush everybody else.
And and you did. So it worked. What did you do that day? What was that? 4:15?
No, it was like 350.
Are you sure?
It was.
But it was definitely 4 sets of 8. Those were 5 sets of 8.
It was 4 sets of 8, 350, because it was 75%. So I just stuck with
Sorry,
that.
yeah, guys, that was just 75% of his best, not best. Yeah, no, but that's interesting that you noticed that about me. Yeah, I put myself in back because I was like coming off at a big wedding weekend. I had cocktails all weekend. I was going to bed at 7 a.m. And I'm like, and I just took the pressure. Part of it was like taking the pressure off myself. It wasn't like what you would say about me. You're like, Jen, why are you using 25s instead of 35s? It was more, I needed to be gentle with myself, and being a little bit in the background helps me do that, because if I was with you, I would have gone heavier in all my deadlifts, and I would have done 35s on all of those, all of those thrusters and everything. And what I needed was to be gentle, not to crush myself. And so that's another layer that you ultimately arrive at. And maybe this is, too layered, but you also have to find the line between what is you taking care of yourself and what is you lying to yourself so you can do less. And you have to be honest, and there's only the difference.
I know it's a fine line between you don't push yourself enough or you push yourself over,
right,
and you get hurt.
Right.
Because I cross that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's right there. Because you have to be, you only get muscle growth with beating yourself down and getting sore when you hit yourself in a different way. But then how far can you take yourself, right? It's also like I feel like an age thing too. Like when you've never hurt yourself, you approach a workout very differently than once you have that pain memory sitting in there.
Sure.
And it also, like, once I hurt my back once, like years ago, took me years to get that pain memory out. My lower back would hurt just walking in the gym.
Yeah. But you know what else grows your muscles really fucking big? Rest.
Yeah.
Rest.
Well, the only
sleep, good calories. I was kind of stuck with a client. He's in his 40s and he's a performer. So we were like trying to gain mass. And I was like, listen, we're growing. It's kind of slower than I wanted to go. I'm seeing measurable differences. And I finally, I just remember he had some big things come up. I'm like, let me just take the weekend off, and we're going to hit it hard Monday. I swear he grew overnight. When I saw him Monday, I'm like, did you work out this weekend? He's like, no, I actually did nothing. I didn't even do the cardio assignment you gave me. I was like, oh my God. And I started to look back and I tracked all of his workouts. I go, I haven't really given him a true rest day or days. And so I started to split his workout like 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off. Let me tell you, my boy is yoked now. And it was just by offering more rest for the tissue to recover. And so a mindset like yours is like, yeah, break your body down. Yes, but then when you rest it, like you have to do that. Do you ever take a day off?
I do.
Okay.
Well, now with the family.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't like it. I hate it. I hate every rest day because of my mental health. Like, I know my body can't take it, but my brain needs it. So
do something else.
Yeah. Well, I do the cold plunge and the bike, which is my rest day.
Yeah.
And that helps.
How many rounds do you do of it?
Just 1.
Yeah.
And that now it's good, but if you don't do anything, it nags me and I just feel mellow and useless and fat all day. So,
well, you're not fat, and you're not. What did we talk about on the way in here? That like to wear a shirt is to disrespect your body.
I know, but it's just like that. You feel.
Listen,
you feel good on rest days. You're like that. I'm gonna be so big tomorrow.
Well, no, I'm trying to lose a little muscle. I don't know what's happened. Like none of my dresses fit, and I was like, I gotta just tone it down a little bit. Yeah. I'm gonna pass you soon.
You should.
Yeah, I got a couple of Christmas hams here. I'm very genetically lucky. I have If I showed you a picture of my parents in the 70s, you'd be like, oh, I get why your body is their bodies. Because my mom was like pretty yoked with like an 8-pack and only did dance. Like she was born in 1948. So, women in sports weren't a thing. And then my dad was like a lifter. And, I have this picture, he's wearing a Speedo and he just thinks he looks like pretty hot stuff. And my mom like blows it out of the water. I'm like, oh, Dad, that's adorable. Mom is the yoked one here and she's never touched a weight. And it was funny. My dad introduced her to weightlifting and then her muscles were like, you know what I mean? And so I'm kind of like my mom's musculature with my dad's ability to grow because he's Swedish and Danish. And so the muscle bellies, like it's kind of deceiving for me at least. I was actually telling you about Dana Lynn Bailey because you see someone and you see yourself and you think, oh, they're so much bigger than me. And I didn't know what to expect when I met her. And she was this sweet, tiny, lovely, quirky, fun person and very muscular, great physique. And she's competed professionally for IFBB and she's a pro and done all these things. And it was funny because still in your mind's eye, I see her and I think, oh, I'm so much smaller than her. And I'm not judging myself, but we tend to measure things as humans. It's like, oh, it's hotter today than it was yesterday, or your hair is shorter than it used to be. And so I'm just kind of measuring myself against her, kind of not meaning to. And I still thought like, well, I'm so small. And so we're taking these pictures after the event that we spoke at. And she was sweet. She goes, well, hold on. I want a picture with you, Jen, And I was like, oh, that's cool, So I, of course, drop down and I start doing push-ups to get a pump just to kind of be funny. And she's like, what? So she drops down and starts doing push-ups and we just kind of had a giggle. Somebody takes a picture of us. She sends it and I'm bigger than her. I'm taller. I'm broader. My muscle bellies are as deep, if not deeper. And I'm not bodybuilding. I'm lowering my protein. I'm off creatine. I'm trying to come in. And this is a woman, and I know she's not currently competing, but I was like, oh, and it just like, but like yet on social media, you see these close-ups of her muscles and her lifting and everything. And I'm like, oh, that's a side of herself that she's presented. And it's just a side of myself that I've never presented. And I'm wondering, and this is like the deep thoughts now, is like, is it because she's accepted her physique and I still haven't fully, because I don't show my leanness. I don't show my bulkiness. And I think especially being in the CrossFit world, pardon me, a little bit, sports, it didn't matter how you looked. It was like, am I going to throw farther than you or not? And in CrossFit, it was like, am I going to lift more, do this fast than you or not? But looks have been a big part of it. And there's a sexualizing of a lot of the female athletes and they're so like, in
CrossFit?
Yeah, dude, like at least for us, I remember they used to call us CrossFit ass power because like we're doing these crazy workouts and we have these shorts and your ass just falls out of your shorts and you're like, I can't even feel them. Like I'm so numb from dying through this workout. Like I'm just trying to get through this. And I just think about so much, like, I don't know. I think that's why with a lot of influence in social media and people, like our bodies have been on display through CrossFit. And I think there's a percentage of people that are truly interested in the sport, truly interested in what their bodies can do. But so many more are just being voyeuristic and gross. And like when I post a picture about, like, I showed you the picture of me holding my luggage and I was super veined out. And I had more responses, more DMs, more requests from my OnlyFans page, which I do not have, like, than ever. And I was like, oh, because I just showed like this part of my body. And so it's a weird context of like going back to Dana. She's embraced her body. She's showing what it can do. And because of that, she gets a lot of eyeballs. And she's, as a coach, helping a lot of people through weight loss and health goals. And for me, it's like, sometimes I think, man, if I revealed more of what my body is and can do, could I do more of what I love the most, which is really help people, which is really coach them? Like, I know what I can do in the lives of people that are stuck and getting started. And you feel like a goal is so out of reach. And like the success stories for me in my community are so like touching. And yet I think, would I be able to do more for more people if I was able to sell my body, so to speak, and get more eyeballs on social media? So now I've taken a totally wild turn, but what do you think about it? It's a lot.
It's funny that you say that because like I always thought, like I always liked that CrossFit was less exhibitionist than like bodybuilding. I used to bodybuild for like 10 years, not like competitive or just like me and my boys in the gym, just doing bodybuilding. And it was always about the look, never about the performance. Like, of course, you compare some numbers, some bench numbers, but it's never about like how CrossFit is. So when I entered the CrossFit world as a man, I see that the female side is completely different now because they have all their booty shorts, and now it does make sense now that I think about it. But I've always saw it more as a CrossFit only performance matters and not looks. Because when you look at the top 3 men, Matt Fraser always says, like, when you look at Wellner with a shirt on, it's like could be any guy, right? It doesn't look jacked or anything. Like doesn't look like one of the fittest people on the planet. So I always like that aspect. That it's purely about performance, and it's not about like, I know that there's a lot of doping going on, but not as much as in like bodybuilding where it's like a must.
Correct.
So I always loved, even if you dope, they still work their ass off.
Oh, of course.
And I always respected that.
Well, yeah. And
I like the CrossFit world much more because now it's not about the after effect. It's about the actual performance.
Yeah.
And no bodybuilder is known for how they row or how they bench.
Right.
It's all about how they flex.
It's usually very low fitness
So
levels.
for me, it was like not the exhibition voyeur part. And then, but in the women's side, I see now that they get, I mean, the outfits couldn't be smaller.
Could it be smaller?
Yeah.
I know. At least in bodybuilding.
I mean, it is a bikinis in Miami.
Oh my God, when they do Wadapalooza and they have to do the swim and they come out of the water and they're doing the skiing and they're bending over in front of you. I mean, it's just like you're on display. And by the way, these women are focused athletes and they're just doing what they got to do to crush their workout. But it is, I mean, why, if you look at the general fitness community and then you look within that, you have CrossFit, which is a much smaller part of the general fitness. When I say general fitness, I'm talking an Orange Theory, a boot camp class, a yoga, a Pilates, more mainstream connections to wellness, a run club, okay? CrossFit's like this small bubble, and then bodybuilding is like this small. It's so much smaller. And I think part of the reason CrossFit grew the way it did was, yes, accessibility, but like, you know, if you look past your top 50 athletes and on the men's and women's side, like it's a really great way to get your body in shape. I know so many like postpartum moms and like dad bod dads that came to CrossFit, got their shit together, met great people. Like it's fun to go and be in a gym with like high energy, good looking people. And so like people just want to be around that context. They want, and they're elevated throughout it. So I don't know, like I just saw, until all the changes happening, like people would come to the SoCal Regional as like, it was like better than a dating app, like just to meet other hot, fit people, whether they were a high level competitor or not. It was like that whole thing. I mean, I was approached by so many men because of my ass was hanging out. Like I was just like, that was it. So I think there's a partialist to that. And you cannot overlook the fetish surrounding muscular women and the people that pursue that to get off. Like that is a whole component.
But then you have to, are you gonna like suffer because of those couple of weirdos sexualizing you and not show the beautiful thing you've built over these years?
You're right. That's exactly what Dana's husband said. He's like, this is the most beautiful body, beautiful, strong, caring woman. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, that is, they really made me think differently about it. And because, you know, for her, she's like, I'm not going to let anyone stop me from being who I am. And for me, it's like, I am who I am, and I'm so private that I don't know if I'm comfortable with it. So it's like, I can still be in the gym and be this body and be this worker and become friends with you and, and have that experience. And if that means I don't have a million, and 10 million followers because of it, that's fine. Because I'd rather have this with you than people clicking on my body in that sense,
Man, I always, yeah.
It's
For me,
a tough
it's always,
line.
yeah. It's also like, I feel like it affects me much more to have somebody in front of me than somebody like checking me out from afar.
Correct.
And it's all like I built this. It's not like me. I feel like having a conversation with you is much more intimate than if you check out my body or not. Like I couldn't care less. Really.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
But also as a man, it's a very different kind of point.
It is.
Than if you're vulnerable.
But what's hard, and this is what and maybe it's my generation, it is difficult for me to merge my values with where social media has taken us. And I know people with apps that have thousands of people in their private groups. I have 200 people in my app. I know all of their first and last names. I know all of their goals. I know if someone's going through a hard time. I had a member in the group who wrote the eulogy for her father. She sent it to me first to read. Like, that is the kind of relationship I have. That's as face-to-face as I can get in an app. But I'm infused in their lives and they're a part of mine, and it's a real relationship. And so the battle I'm suffering is the value of like, that is the way I coach and that is the way I teach. And I don't need 2,000 people in my app. I'm happy with the 200. Frankly, I don't know how much more I would take on because I want that quality. So does that mean I suffer from a business standpoint and make less money? Sure. But like, I'm doing great work and I love who I am as a coach. And I don't know that I would change that system. But the other side of that coin is with great power comes great responsibility, right? And so for me to only exclusively work with 200 people when I know I could help more, if I was willing to let more people like get eyeballs on my page with this algorithm. So I post some of my workouts, so I post more close-ups of my body, even if that's just a trigger to get more people in, right? It's an algorithm. The more people that click, the more of your audience that you get reached. Like, I'm not trying to get more members. I'm just trying to reinvest in the ones that are a part of my community and have been there for a long time. And but the only way to get to there is to do that thing. And am I willing to do that in order to help and be their coach? And I'm still stuck on that answer. Still stuck on it.
Sacrifices.
Oh, God. Maybe
it's like showing a little bit more, helping more people.
I know. But
But I really want to talk about this. And also, you were on The Biggest Loser, right?
Yeah.
And we live in times, I really want your opinion on because it's really difficult, when I feel like you, same as being in LA or being very fit, you're so used to yourself in the mirror, you cannot even imagine what it feels like to not be able to control what you eat.
Oh.
Yeah. And I find myself in a very judgy opinion about...
You carry one? Yeah.
I have to remind myself, not everybody is wired like you. Maybe my brother doesn't want to be a CrossFitter, right?
Yeah.
Because I treat myself, other people like how I want to be treated. And a lot of times I always wanted a dad that pushes me over the limit. And I never had that.
Mm-hmm.
So I always was looking for a person that tells me get up, bitch. You're weak. You're not good enough. You need to be stronger. I always wanted that kind of motivation, but not everybody feeds off that. So you being on The Biggest Loser, working with very overweight people.
Yeah.
How do you even start?
It is.
Or somebody watching being very overweight. How do you help somebody like that? Because one of your biggest goals is to help people become a better version of themselves. Right.
The better version is available only if they believe it's possible. So I'm a lot of the work with people that are in that position, and I really feel like the experience is similar whether you have 25 pounds to lose or 100 pounds to lose, If you don't know yourself very well, you don't know what you're investing in. You don't know what it's worth, and you're eating through discomfort and feelings. And there is legitimately food addiction that is going on. And I've had several contestants that have come to me with that and struggle with that. And that's a different conversation because it's like if you're an alcoholic, but you have to have one beer at every meal. Could you imagine how hard that would be? And yet they have to find their way through each meal of the day and not overeat, because that for food, for them, their drug is food. And what's difficult is I see a lot of people that are in the Biggest Loser category, they're eating to cope, and they're eating like for that comfort, almost like at the end of the day of their, chaotic life, the job that they're frustrated with, the relationships that they're struggling with, the stress, the traffic, the financial struggle, all they have at the end of the day is food. They know it's going to be there. They know they can count on it. And what I often like to offer people is, having fat on your body is basically like this blanket of energy, right? Your energy is stored in the form of fat. So it's just stored energy. There's nothing bad. It's your body doing what it's supposed to do. But what's happening is when people that are coping through food and alcohol and inactivity, right? They recluse, they seclude. We can visually see that they're going through something because fat is on the surface of your skin. Everyone can see, oh, what's up with them? But if you had to write your total debt number on, like, and wear it around a sign around your neck, like, it's the same thing. It's like they're walking in shame every day because they're wearing their debt number in a sense. And if you've never been in that position, you're like, what's the problem? Just do it. Just get up. Just do the ice bath. And for them, I think getting people started is really simply, they need consistency and they need opportunities to experience themselves. So what I mean by that is that's why I love workouts. That's why I like journaling. That's why I like group stuff, because when you're in a workout, you realize, oh, I'm a hard worker. Or they'll have a story in their mind like, oh, I can't use more than 5s. No way. I'm so weak. It's been so long. And then they use 10s in the workout and they're like, oh, well, I'm stronger than I thought I was, right? So it's that evidence I talked about earlier. They need to be able to see that they're capable. They need to be able to see the strength of their mind because they've often just forgotten or gotten out of touch with it. That's all it is. So it's me reminding them of that. The journaling is honestly just people like sitting down with their thoughts, letting them come up, and having the ability to trust someone and have conversations with them. So like in my private group, everybody's got accountability partners. They've got someone to like bounce ideas off, someone that's on the road with them. Maybe they have different goals or different weights to lose, but they're like, it normalizes the experience that I've got myself in debt and I got to work my way out of it, and that it's okay. And you don't have to judge yourself, but there is a pathway forward. And often they just need leadership and support while they do it. So that's kind of the broader concepts around it. But once people realize they know they have something to fight for, which is themselves, it's much easier to let go, because most people are eating through loneliness, anger, trauma, or just avoidance, to be very honest. And the hard part too is family circles as well. The way you talk about your household and like being that healthy example, like that's really important. If you come from a home where there is inactivity, and if you tried, like, I was the kid that like was eating better at dinner, and my mom's like, why aren't you eating? I'm like, I got a branzino fish and roasted vegetables. That's a meal. And my mom was just insecure because she had gained a lot of weight and was telling me how I wasn't eating because I ordered fish and vegetables. I'm like, well, I just feel better. Like, that's how I started. Like, but I know it's a better story than my mom. I have a friend who is married to this amazing, so Bart is Korean and then his wife is Mexican, and they'll have like a family like barbecue thing. And his brother-in-laws are like, oh, you're going to make a salad today? Are you on a diet? And Bart's always like, so I ultimately succumb and eat, the shittier food because I want to be accepted by her family and loved and part of the circle. And so a lot of times people stay in that circle just to feel like they belong. And so that's a whole other component around psychology and community and tribe, because you want to be a part of that tribe. And for you to do something different or to think different would jeopardize your stability in that tribe.
And that's a huge problem when everybody's unhealthy and eating shit, especially in America.
Correct.
Because then you're not a part of the tribe anymore. You're like an outsider.
Right.
Because there's fast food everywhere, screens, phones.
I know. It's all convenience. But I do think there's a way to bring the pendulum back to center. I mean, we never ordered out. I think we got pizza once a month. We had every meal at the table together. We didn't eat in front of a TV. Now I realize it was the 80s and 90s, but like we didn't have cell phones. Like even if we did, they wouldn't be allowed. It was just not a part of our life at all.
Yeah, I like that when I'm like a 92 born. So I grew up without phones or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And that helps a lot.
But it starts with the leadership in the family and like, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
How do we, you know what I mean? Like if I have kids, like I know what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. And I think it's our generations, like the 80s and 90s babies that are like raising this next batch of kids with a different set of values.
What about fat people in commercials?
Be more specific.
Like Calvin Klein.
Oh. So
or Victoria's Secret.
This is tricky.
Or even what do you think about a fat Barbie?
Okay, so this is okay. This is tricky. There is a very distinct.
I mean, I feel like I can't even say that. Like
that you can't or can.
Like saying fat.
I say fat because it's the truth. If someone wants to take it as derogatory.
If you're fat, you're fat.
Yeah, I think there are derogatory ways to, make fun of people, and I don't see that as one of them. I just think that's the truth. And if it sounds harsh, it's probably because you're overweight and you don't like that you are. So, there are different body shapes and sizes that are very real. But then there's obesity. And we've accepted far too much obesity in this culture.
Far too much.
And we're sick and dying. And we've never had more trainers, more diets available, more programs, more tools. My friend Kelly Surratt says it's $1 trillion a year experiment that we're failing, right? The wellness industry is $1 trillion business, and we're sicker and fatter than ever. Why? Right? And I'm actually in the middle of this documentary that I'm putting together, and it's exposing the healthy lies that we're told, that we're marketed as, that we're saying it's okay to stay fat. Stay fat. We see you. We know life's hard.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Every body is beautiful.
Right.
Even if you're dying.
Right. Well, but
you can't breathe over the stairs.
But they don't know what they don't know. They don't know. So we're a loss-adverse culture, which means we're more likely to change behavior if we are at the fear of losing something than of gaining something. So if I tell you, you have to stop smoking cigarettes. Sorry, I got twisted. I'm pretending you smoke cigarettes. Mm-hmm. Okay, you've been smoking for 10 years. I'm like, okay, Candy, you have 1 year. If you don't smoke cigarettes, I'll give you $1 million. And like partway through the year, you'd be like, I don't know. I don't really need $1 million. I got a good life. I love my wife's good. Fuck it. By June, you're smoking, right? But if I told you owed me $1 million, you had to give me $1 million if you smoked in that year, you'd hold out. Because you're like, I don't want to give up that money. And so that's what starts to happen. And so what we do is we don't take things away from people. We encourage it. And we say, ooh, we sell you 7 inches in 7 days. And we do these quick fixes that are not, like, it's misinformation. It's lies around how to actually lose and sustain weight. And unfortunately, the really dynamic, bright, shiny bullshit is what gets people's attention. And the really good work that will get you into a healthy place is not that sexy. It's just repeatable, boring, healthy habits. Then you got to do them all again. Then you got to do them all again. And it's the discipline, but also it's the mindset. And so going back to your question, look at the dynamic that Adele had with her fans when she started losing weight. When she got healthy, she took care of herself. What did they do?
They shamed her.
You bet they did.
They were like,
And you're like, why? They're ashamed. She's like, stop it. I'm taking control of my life. I'm taking care of me. I worry for Lizzo. I worry for all of these powerful, dynamic women in the public eye that are going to be forced to stay fat because they don't want to lose their audience. And the reality is like, Lizzo does need to be healthier. She does need to lose weight. She needs support in that journey. Does she need to be a size 4? Absolutely not. Like my sister, same parents, same upbringing. We, same food growing up. Her body is so different than mine. Like her bone structure, her ankles are like the size of my ankles are the size of her wrists. So I think the lightest she ever was that I remembered is like easily in the 160s or 70s. I'm like 145. She was a 12 easily and like very healthy 12. So you can be a very healthy 8, a very healthy 12, a very healthy 16. But when we start to go beyond these weights and we nurture them in each other, we're nurturing our own desire to not change our habits, to not be responsible for our health, because we collectively can stay in this, what's the word I want to use? Unconscious place. It's like, let's just sweep it under the rug. I don't want to do it. Let's just stay like this together. Do I think there should be a fat Barbie? No. Do I think she should be a size 0, like whatever, like the traditional Barbies are like a woman that could never exist? I think.
but it's a doll.
It's a doll. Right.
Should we make Superman fat?
Right. No.
The Hulk
I know.
with a belly? Have you ever heard
and by the way, do it just to make the audience feel more comfortable.
Right. Have you ever heard a man be like, nah, I don't want no superheroes with abs, please?
How about this? How come there's no pressure on all the male superheroes to be fit, but don't put that pressure on women? It's like, what do you mean? Hugh Jackman is like getting ready for the next Deadpool.
Yeah.
Like all these meals a day, getting lean, getting bigger. It's almost in reverse for men. They have to get leaner and bigger. And if they're not lean enough and big enough, I don't believe that you're a superhero. But Gal Gadot gets to be Wonder Woman. I was like, you know what I mean? By the way, she was a great Wonder Woman. I would have appreciated someone with a little bit more muscle, but that's my own vision. That's the cartoon of Wonder Woman I grew up with. And even if you look at the original Wonder Woman, like from the 50s and 60s, Linda Carter, she was a normal chick, but like it was like her essence that was strong. And we love that like the idea of strength and what we saw as strength. Another great example. Do you watch sci-fi movies?
Mm-hmm.
Look at Lieutenant Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, and Alien 2.
Mm-hmm.
You see this woman that is not ripped, right? She's kind of like a little lanky. There's a scene when she's like trying to learn how to use the gun, and the power and strength that she exudes fighting these aliens. Like, I have chills thinking about it. She wasn't a size 0. She wasn't a size 16. She wasn't super muscular. She just was a woman on a mission and mentally committed. And that character was the strongest woman I've ever seen on the screen. And so to me, it's like we're getting so connected to the exterior that we're not getting the right characters in front of, in my opinion, in front of our community, especially young kids.
What about all the pronouns and all that stuff?
Oh gosh, it's this. You just
Or what do you think about like masculine man? Like I watched the Barbie movie, right?
Okay, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. So okay.
I'm told there's a lot of messages in there.
Because I thought I'm Candy Ken, right? I'm gonna love this movie.
Correct.
Right? And I loved the first half an hour, maybe hour.
Okay.
It was great. Great set. Looked like a music video, right? It was beautiful. It was so cool. Everything was so cool. I was like, wow, I'm gonna watch this again. Like, I love this. Like,
okay.
Just to get the visuals.
Like took you into a different world.
So inspiring, right? The Barbie house. She's drinking without water in it, like a doll. Like it's like so sick, right?
Yeah.
But then they put in that the reason why the planet is going to shit is because of man and masculinity. And Ken needs to be so in touch with his feminine side, and he like is always crying and like it was just crazy to me that like this iconic movie now has to be so time adapted that they put everything in there what is happening right now, that women need to be, you get shamed if you're a stay-at-home mom,
Right.
and if you're a stay-at-home dad you get praised. You're Kevin Hart, right?
Yeah.
You are the one, you stay at home for your children. And it just, I had a hard time watching it.
I haven't gone to see it yet because I saw a marketing ad that was like, Barbie, blah, 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 blah. And Ken is just Ken.
Yeah.
And I was like,
What the fuck is
what
happening
does
there?
that mean? And I think that there's been this term that was thrown around that was very real and significant for its time, toxic masculinity, where, men that were growing up were told to like, be your man, get your shit together, grow some ball. And there was an aggression around kind of rearing their young male children. And that there was an absence of sensitivity that was, I think, important for any kind of balance. Like I have a balance of masculine and feminine in my personality and in my spirit, and you have the same, and that's great. And those balances are going to look different, and they're going to be different for every person. That does not change my gender. That doesn't change my value. It doesn't change my ability to be a good mom because I want to work. It doesn't change, it doesn't change the value I bring as a human. And unfortunately, in a culture where everyone's trying to be woke and inclusive of people, to hear that like Ken's not sensitive enough, it's like some of the most sensitive men I know are the ones teaching their sons to be good men, and are in touch with their daughters and spend time making their lunches and play with dolls with their daughters, but also, teaches their kids, their boys how to fish and camp and gets dirty. And you know what I mean? There is a way to do that. And so I don't know what everyone's seeing, but what I see is that we have so many amazing men out there that are incredible fathers. And I don't know why maybe we're taking it too literally. Maybe there's a different message now. I'm kind of want to watch it so I can have this conversation with you. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being a tough man. I don't think there's anything wrong with being masculine. I don't think there's anything wrong with allowing your wife to be the more sensitive side of the parenting couple. And by the way, like look at same-sex marriages. You can feel a sense of a masculine and a feminine partner.
Of course, it's yin and yang.
So it's okay. And that's not about male, female. It is yin and yang. So for me, I'm kind of bro-y. I've got a masculine side to me. The man I end up with will have a very sensitive side. He will. And maybe we'll be more tolerant and gentle with our kids than I would be. Right? Doesn't make me a bad mom. Doesn't make me a bad person. So I feel like we like to, what I say earlier, we like to measure things as a culture and people. We'd like to put things in categories as well. And so when you talked about like the binary, non-binary conversation as well, I have two cousins that are in Queens that are both non-binary. And I don't mind the exploration of a young person saying, okay, what does this mean? What does this feel like? They're not asking for gender reassignment. They're not trans. They're just non-binary. And I had a talk in length about it with them because I was like, but why can't you be her? They're like, well, I don't want to be assigned something. And I was like, well, I'm a woman because that's what my anatomy says. But like my friend's 4-year-old is sure that I'm a dude. Like he thinks I'm a guy. It's so funny. My friend's little kid thinks I'm a boy. And I'm like, maybe it's my energy. You know what I mean? I've got my hair. I've got like mascara on. I have boobs. He's like, I don't know. I think she is. And it's so funny because they have him on video talking through this. And so my thing is I just told them, I'm like, well, non-binary is just another label. It's an association of another layer of something.
And we love labels because that creates...
Right.
It's me versus you.
Correct.
Right?
And
it's not, we're not all in this together. No,
right.
It's the minorities versus the big evil.
Yeah.
Right?
But is there...
Like when you're like me, white, straight, masculine, you're already lost in every way. Like you're the worst.
Yeah.
Right? You shouldn't be, no advice should come from you. But if you're a minority,
Let's hear what you have to say.
It's like TikTok gives all the jobs to the minority people.
Mm.
If we don't get any ads, or because we don't fit the what's going on right now.
Well, there's two. You have to think about two things though. All TikTok is, all YouTube, all television is who's watching.
Yeah.
So based on who's watching, who's tuning in, we have those demographics. We're going to provide faces that you relate to. So what that tells me, if it's all minorities on TikTok, the majority of TikTok users and people that purchase things from TikTok are minorities.
But I think it's not true, because what they have about the pronouns, it's a very small group of people that is asking for that, but it gets pushed on everyone, kind of.
I agree.
Which is kind of weird,
Well,
because I love people doing them and being themselves. I love that.
Of course.
I was
It's who you are.
since I started Candy Can, I've performed at gay clubs all over the world. They're my favorite people, and I've always they're the first ones that even been behind me, like, and really stood behind me. But also, they're a very small percentage of the population. And to put on pronouns for everyone,
Right.
is kind of odd to me.
Well, I don't think there's few other minority groups that understand the pain and the torture that the gay community has gone through, especially gay men. So everything that happened in the 80s and HIV, and then how, to this day, do you know that if you're gay, you cannot donate blood?
In America.
Correct.
Didn't know that.
Correct. Cannot. Because of the HIV epidemic, which we know is not a gay disease. It was a human disease, but because it spread there first, to this day, they can't donate blood.
That's crazy.
It's insane. So everybody that's raising their hand, talking about how, how bad they have it, it's like they're, and that's why they were so supportive of you. In my opinion, the gay community understands when they see somebody stepping out, standing for who they believe, being a pure person, a pure heart, and having good intentions, they're like, we're going to get behind that. And that's who you are. That's who you represent. That's why people gravitate towards you. And so what's tough is like the trans community has also been living alongside the gay community for years. There's so much information, documentary, reported conversations and videos. I mean, like for years, they've been almost like a more silent component of the gay community, because they're also, I think it's more jarring to the general population. It's hard to encapsulate someone's gender. In the same way, you have no idea why someone could get so fat. It's like no one will ever understand what it's like to be born in a body that is not who you are. I can't imagine what that feels like. And they have been living it before it was accepted, before people were celebrating it, before you could even have the science and the medicine to change and to feel like you could be in your body. So it's like, and now it's trending, and that's what I'm not okay with. Let's not disrespect generations of men and women that have been like standing the ground and fighting for those rights and for that truth, because now it's cool to have a trans person like in your show or on your movie or as a friend, and that gives you brownie points. It was like BLM happened. Everyone's like, oh, I have a black friend. It's like, okay, it doesn't
calm down.
Okay, pal, you're not safe. Okay, I know black people too, but it doesn't mean I have been in respect of what I have no idea what that experience is. You're not covered, you're not cleared, but now it's been popularized, and it's been like it's trending to have these categories of people in your life versus like, well, where were you before all this shit happened? Because that's the kind of friendship people need, and that's the kind of support these minorities deserve.
Absolutely.
So,
but I also feel like it's always it's very aggressive and dividing almost. I feel like, and it should be, we're all fighting for one common thing.
I agree.
And with labeling each other and finding 1,000 genders, I feel like it would be much more beautiful to come back as a human race than to be like, you're her and you're it and you're this and you're that.
Okay.
Because then it's very isolating.
So then why do you think this is the current state of affairs? Why do you think people are
It's
separating?
it's comfort.
Okay.
There's no war. There's nothing else to do. So we're just gonna go online and annoy everybody because we are so comfortable. You know, that's another thing with mental health.
Yeah.
I'm not denying that depression and anxiety is not real, but it's trendy to be depressed, to go to therapy, to be anxious. It's like trendy to label yourself as victimize yourself as being like mentally, like it's like when you come out and you're like I'm doing mentally really bad, everybody's like, so like you're doing really great.
Yeah.
Like thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And back in the day when we were so busy with a cause, with a very good cause,
real cause.
you got to get up and you got to fight. There's no thinking about like, am I depressed? I feel like we live in a time where you have everything. You warm up, you wake up in a warm bed. You have all the food you want, all the water you want to drink. That's why everybody's getting fat too, because you have all the food you ever wanted. You can eat it at any time, and you get so comfortable that you just come up with crazy ideas and sicknesses and disease and dividing us all, and the pharma and the big industries, they love that, because as long as everybody is busy with their pronouns, there's no bigger awareness and awakening that they're after us and they want us sick and working our 9 to 5 and being in this slavery where we all are in. Like
Yeah.
you say the thing about gay people, and I feel that, but I growing up in Austria, everybody in Austria suffers from Hitler, even though it's a new generation. Has nothing to do with it. I have nothing to do with Hitler just being born in Austria. But my parents got taught that you got to feel bad for what happened. And everybody in America get taught you have to feel bad for slavery, even though it has happened. And we don't realize that we're still all in this huge machinery, just very delicate slavery, where you don't realize that you have chains on and who actually decides who eats and who goes to work and where the money goes and what you're gonna get injected with. It gets very crazy because there needs the big thing is we all need to come together and wake up and fight together as one and stop dividing ourselves with crazy pronouns. I think it's just such a distraction. And I think it's great if you call yourself a unicorn, do what you gotta do, right? That's fine. But we gotta find a way where we are not like you're something else than me. We're all in this together and they're making us sick. They're feeding us wrong food. They're giving us the wrong
They want to keep us asleep.
asleep as much
Yeah.
as possible and
Yeah.
as unhealthy as possible. Just not dead, but almost dead. Brain dead, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a huge distraction and it goes away from the bigger picture. And we're all still drugged by the food industry and misinformed about everything. That's the only way how they got through with the whole pandemic stuff is with misinformation. So I feel like it's just a huge distraction, no disrespect to anything that happened in history.
No, of course.
But also,
But those historical events were very real, were traumatic, are now scars on both of our nation's history. And
but does it need it to constantly you be reminded?
what we need is the correct information. Like, I think to be aware of what happened is important so we know where to go so we don't repeat these mistakes.
Absolutely.
But what happens is there's this like dick measuring contest of who had it worse.
Exactly.
And that's what needs to stop. When BLM happened, then Asian Stop Asian Hate, there was like a conflict in the Asian community's ability to say that. And I was like, because it wasn't as bad as slavery. I'm like, do you know who built the railroads? Do you know how many
And what about my Hispanics?
oh my God. How about Native Americans? who we stole
I
the
know,
line from
and
in the
you can
first
never
place.
make it fair to everyone.
So that's what, and you don't see Native American culture saying, but us. Like there has been, we've done poorly in times, but we can do better. And I think we're doing better and better in respecting each other, which is good. But like respecting versus accepting, like I'm wondering where the line is being drawn. I don't. I think that the number one way to take down a country is to divide it. And that's why for me, the lack of information that we can trust is really what's messing me up. Like if we all got the same newspaper every morning that had real information on it, or the same, forget newspaper. I know no one reads newspapers anymore. I do. The same posts on Instagram that like, whether it was the BBC or Fox News or whatever, that they were saying, okay, this is what's happening. And we were like, okay, did you see it? You're like, oh yeah, I read that there and I read that there. But we're all aligned that the information that's being provided is the truth. Doesn't matter what gender you are or your orientation or your skin color. Like we understand the information is the same. And what's happened is politically speaking, they're using principles these are like tactics to win in elections. Like the abortion conversation that's happening now with the Republicans. So it's like they're using, if I'm running for president, I want to get young votes. I'm going to talk about how much I love transgenders. It's like, stop politicizing people's like lives. And I think that we would stop choosing sides and we could unite under the same information. But I think we're being manipulated, and that's where it's really tough.
It's really tough.
Mm-hmm. I wish I had a really good answer. I do think that you said something that was really powerful. Like, we're comfortable. I look at my parents who are 75 and 78. They have lived through so many wars and were born right after a terrible one. So they lived the aftershock of World War II. And you realize the scarcity, of resource, the gratitude for your family and your friend. Like it was such a different vantage point of how to be grateful for what you have, and like like a home with a roof and running water. My mom's like, I remember how happy I was when I was 26 and we actually moved to a house that had like central heat. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know what you mean, because I haven't experienced that.
Right. No, exactly. But also, I mean, I've been to Africa a handful of times now. Take a walk in Malawi if you think your life is so bad. I've never seen more smiling children in my life that don't know their parents, that don't have food, that are starving, dirty, they don't have shoes. And they're like so happy to see you and just so grateful for a conversation and like the music that you're playing on your Walkman. And
But doesn't that make you then sick when somebody says they're depressed on social media and you're like, shut the fuck up?
well,
You have everything. You're literally on an iPhone.
what I tend to find that people that are very vocal about their depressions are the ones that need the least help, and they probably just need the most attention.
Exactly.
There are people that suffer in silence, the people that take their lives, the veterans, 22 dying every day because they're taking their lives.
But why? They have purpose, and then they come back in this in this useless
and unsupported.
Yeah, I heard these stories. They stand in front of Starbucks with like 20 different coffees, or in front of the cereal, and they're like, what the fuck is this? Like, I have no purpose. This is all garbage. We live in this garbage comfort.
Well, and they go and they're spending their life losing their teammates in these wars, and they come back and they're like, this is what we're fighting for. Imagine how they feel. People are dying over there, and for what?
For people getting fed over here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
So, you and I could take a dive, but like, I think when it comes to depression, I think that I have a friend of mine that was going through a lot with her. She had a new kid, and her toddlers were was really acting out, and she had a very honest post, and then she was like, listen, I'm having a hard time. And it was like that. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. It lets people know that that's normal. And the moms that maybe are going through it, like, okay, I've had something similar. She did this to get better. Great. Like there can be resource shared by being honest and not making everything perfect. Your wife was bravely posted about her miscarriage. And it's like, that's important to, I think, show and share as a collective community. But the people that are depressed, it's like, are you, or is it attention, or are they bored? You know, like so many decisions that we make in a day don't hold any value. You know, will I go to the gym or not? Will I go to work or not? Will I get blank for lunch or blank for lunch? You know, I had a friend that just hiked this crazy outdoor trail for like 5 days. It was like, do we push for 10 more miles not knowing if we're going to find a water source? Like, that's a real decision, and it's just water. But like, there's a deeper value in your existence when you have like this. There's so much more on the line when everything's more simplified. And I just think that we complicate things, and to kind of make us feel like we're a part of something or doing something. I think people that get sad and depressed are just yearning to like be a part of something. And that's why I always tell people, leave the house, go to a 7, like walk, like you have to get out of that bubble and get in front of people and get out of that pattern. Because I just feel like people get detached and they get depressed and they don't understand their role. And I think that's what's so powerful when you look at Africa, South America, a lot of Asian cultures. There's a tribal setup that's very like, I mean, if you just look at like primal times, like, okay, I'm going to go hunt the animal. You're going to help me break it down and bring it back. Someone else has got to be prepping the dishes and the fire. Someone else has got to cook it. So we don't eat unless we all show up and do this job. And that system is not really intact anymore in our culture, because thank God, we've come so far. There's so much science, there's so much medicine, there's so much technology, but in a way it has separated us from being a part of something or from being useful. Like, why do I need to be here? Would anyone miss me? You know? And that's where I think the seed gets planted.
And also, I feel like I can't go back. Like, I wish, like how you say, like how your parents grew up. Like I have, like my wife especially has this fantasy of living on a farm.
Do it.
Get your own vegetable.
You can.
But I don't think I can. Because I know now with the internet, there's something else. Like
I think there's a way to live.
How do you turn your back though on that?
This is a story.
Could you do that? You could just go on a farm and forget about social media and like never use a phone again?
Close. Yeah. I think I would give myself 1 day a week. Like here's a story I heard about Ed Sheeran. I don't know if it's true. He has, I think, like a flip phone or like a cell phone that only his like wife and I think like a manager has or something. The number 2. And if you want to get a hold of Ed, you email him. And on Mondays, he checks that email. And that's it. So it's like, if you email it on Tuesday, it will be till Monday. So you kind of train your audience, so to speak. On Mondays, you'll get a response. And he sits and he goes to the emails. And then that's it. And then he's detached doing his life. Now, whether that life is in a shag carpet room like this or, on a farm, I don't see why you can't do it. I think you can do less.
I just feel like, I don't know, it would haunt me.
What are you missing out? What are you missing?
All the technology, all this LA life. I don't know. I can't see myself. It seems so healthy and like so right and untoxic.
Yes.
But it also feels like you are just denying. It's like a tribe in the jungle. You're denying what has happened, kind of.
Listen, you can still do podcasts 2 days a week and come in here.
So you think balance is the key?
Yeah. Harmony. I don't think balance is a word I could use anymore faithfully. I just don't think everything is even. I think that you might have some weeks where maybe you have 1 day of heavy technology and then you have, now because of technology, you can...
Okay, maybe that's what I agree with, because just also doing 100% only the farming is also not really balanced.
I agree.
right?
You have to have
That's
both
like saying
sides.
I'm not going to brush my teeth anymore.
Yeah,
Like what are you doing?
that
Like,
won't work.
right?
We
Like,
need to brush
but
them.
they didn't brush back in the day, so you know,
Yeah.
I'm tribaling it up. So
no, there's a way to live in both.
yeah, because that's where
And also, you're raising children in a world that is right now.
yeah.
So you need to be
it's-
aware of what's going on.
Yeah, it's like pretending you're not rich.
Yeah, it's like, come on. But I think you can have a larger footprint in a farm kind of life. By the way, you don't have to like buy a plot of land and live in Wyoming. There is space in California that I've not been to your home yet. There are ways that you can like do like raised bed gardens and really work your land and do things that like allow you to work with your hands versus you type on a device.
Also, that's where I think the cold plunge comes in handy because it gives you, because you're always comfortable, you're never cold. It gives
Yeah.
you just a tiny little bit of edge.
I know, but it's almost like it's like a quick fix.
It is a quick
Like
fix.
I think the greatest you will ever feel, the greatest connection you will have to your spiritual self, to nature, to that to the grounding that you're talking about and that you desire, is over time away, unplugged. Like it's being in nature. Like I have a camper van, so I'll go for days.
I saw it on IG.
Yeah, I'll go for days at a time, and I'll just go.
Yeah.
And it's what's beautiful is you don't have service, and like the first couple hours, you're like, shit, you know, you're like, oh, do you have service? I don't have service. You know what I mean? And then you, by the end of the day, you're like, I don't even know where my phone is. Like I don't.
It goes that quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And by the next day, you wake up with the sun, you go to bed with the moon, and now don't get me wrong, I charged up my speaker, I had music, you know what I mean? But like I love that I could drive my van to the store and buy extra Boochcraft and, you know, drinks and like food that was, they had fried chicken. Like, so I'm getting that I'm living in a world that's now. I'm not like picking berries and catching fish and eating off the land. But when it comes to a digital detox, I think it's required for the way our minds are meant to be. And also that I think is the source of people feeling like they're not enough. Like I will be honest, I saw a friend of mine post a picture and it was like a wedding and it was like all of these like top trainers and their wives. And I was like, am I not included at this wedding? And my feelings were hurt a little bit. And I was like, this is what like, but like then I calmed, like I was like, Jen, I know the groom really well, but not well enough. I'm like, would you invite him to your wedding? I'm like, no fucking way. So it's okay that he didn't invite me, but you just start to do this weird measuring and you're like, what, hold on. Should I have done this? And why didn't anybody tell me they were in town? And, you know, you're just like, let people live their lives. You're living yours. And I'm so happy in my life. I love what I'm doing. So it's a tricky line to walk if you're not aware of who you are and you can't catch yourself in the spirals. But I teach this and I still get stuck. But that's why I know posting when I feel like I have something to say and then not when I don't is a really important part of my happiness. Because I used to post all the time and I had someone helping me with my social media and they were like, we need more skin. We need more workout videos. We need more whatever. Can you dance and like point at the screen? And I was like, listen, I'm a coach. I'm not an entertainer. That's who I am and that's what I want to do. And that's where I draw the line, you know? But it's I do think there's a way to detox and then still be able to be the influence that you are to the world that you serve. No doubt.
Do you think you can be truly happy without working out?
No. I can always tell if I've traveled, like I had the wedding this weekend and I was gone for 2 days. And by Sunday, I was supposed to come home and then the day kind of extended. And I woke up Monday just kind of depressed and out of it and not myself and a little grouchy. And I was like, oh shit, it was 3 days. I had 1 day of the weekend where I went like a long like walk hike, but I don't really count that as like the workout,
Absolutely
you know?
Not.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely not. Okay. And but
people walk there like I worked out.
Yeah. Well, but for some people it is, and that's okay. But I was like, so I have a 3-day rule. I don't let myself go past 3 days without a workout because I get like, I just kind of become not nice. And my food choices really go down. And I'm like, does anyone want a beer? I know it's 3:00, but why not? You know what I mean? Like my drinking goes up, my bad food goes up, my I get judgmental. I'm like, ugh, why is she, like, I'm like, who is talking right now? So it's a really important part of like my overall sense of self. It almost like it's like a whiteboard and I clear up all the trash that's up there. Kind of clears the mind.
Absolutely. Not only that, I feel like anger is a powerful tool if directed in the right. Like when you look at all these like beautiful MMA fighters, or like anger and even aggression can be put to work, or it can really outrage and cause destruction.
Yeah.
Especially a young man with so much testosterone. I already see my son, the anger he has. They always say kids are not angry, and they're like, you teach them hate? No. You have no idea. He
like mine was born.
He crushes things and he throws things which you will not see in a female, in a little girl, where he has this testosterone, which is clearly biologically visible to me.
Yeah.
Which needs to be, when I run with him in the park and I really tire him out, or I swim, or I do activities outside with him, I feel this relief of calmness, this being in touch with your feminine side. This like, now he's like, he hugs me and he's not like unease. And when you don't let a man or your testosterone in the right direction, they become very unease psychopaths who then do school shootings or you name it, which is out of control testosterone, which is very dangerous. And that's like why people rape people at the club and like do crazy shit, because they have no purpose and they don't direct all
You think
this.
that's like drugs or alcohol too? I don't think it's just testosterone.
But
I think there's an imbalance, there's an energy surplus, if you will, right? And so like that creates like a manic state. And I mean, I've dated a few of the guys I've dated, high level performers, and it's like if they don't work out, they're just not right. And I'm not saying
they're different people, no?
Yeah, but same for me. So it's like, I mean, and I'm not saying like a 30-minute like bike ride, like they'll crush for 3 hours just to get to baseline. And then they might need something else. And that's, you know what I mean? But like kudos to them for understanding what they need and building that into their life. Like that's what they need to feel centered. Other people in that situation just would do a lot of drugs or become homeless and crazy. Like and not everybody is born with that kind of dynamic. I'm interested to see the direction your son goes.
Same.
But I do know keeping him active and focused in play are going to be huge for him.
Yeah.
And also connected to you in a positive way. I feel like men, it's a very monkey see, monkey do. So what you
especially
see,
when they're young.
Yeah.
They copy everything you do.
Yeah.
So if they see you sit on the couch and eat shit, they will just copy that or accept that also and be like, oh, this is the norm.
Yep.
This is how I see my dad.
Yep.
I will do that, kind of.
Of course. And of course, and a lot of parents that aren't the healthiest are happy to have company. They're happy to have a kid that wants to do what they do so they don't have to change what they're doing. You know, it can be incestuous.
And isn't it so tough that you need to be uncomfortable to find joy, like the yin and yang? How like when you have it all, it seems very tough to find peacefulness almost.
Mm. Well, having it all in the context of things and money, yeah. But to have it all is to have peace. And I think that it's really hard to get there because I think the mind kind of lies to you, right?
Of course.
These quick hits of, this is fun, this new purse, the retail therapy of shopping, the attention from from who you're trying to pursue. There are all these things that we're distracted with that fill us temporarily, but at the end of the day, you go home and you're like, I really don't feel good, and you don't know that, and you don't know how to get there, and we don't know what that means, because I think that I have a sense of that, we walk through this life here to kind of like figure out, like as kids, we come through and then there's a process of awakening and you understand why you're here and what you're doing, or at least what you're trying to figure out. And that's a really kind of bumpy road. And I think about my 20s, like, man, did I have a lot of fun, but I wasn't awake or aware. And it took most of my 30s to really get clear and get a sense of I need to stop reaching out for things because I've been doing a lot of that and no amount of that has made me feel any better or any more settled. And I'm desperate for this peace. And that's why everyone's like, oh, you're reaching outside yourself for things, but it's within you. And you don't really know what that means until you really start to detach from those things. It's almost like an addict and you get rid of the stimulus and you're like, okay, what's left? And when you spend time with what's left, which is you're like, oh, this is pretty great here. But if you're in a position where you were born into everything or are given everything, it's hard to know the difference. It's hard to know what that looks like. And to not have those things, then it's the social, well, what does it say about me? If I don't show up in this great car, what will my friends think? Or what will you know what I mean? There's a lot of worry about fitting in and feeling a part. I talked about tribe earlier. So it's like if you were born into money, you're born into these things. That's a lot of times when those are the people that are almost depressed because like they're like, well, what's their, like it's like what you talked about something being difficult or uncomfortable brings you happiness. They don't know what it's like to work towards something. Very few have had the opportunity. How about that?
Because they don't have to.
They don't have to.
There's always plan B
right.
Which is weird because like every time I'm very uncomfortable, I feel like I always listen to David Goggins saying everybody can be happy, but you find yourself in the dark space when it's dark, or like I'm in the cold plunge or I'm in a grueling CrossFit workout.
Yeah.
I find out who I really are.
Exactly.
And I get over a point where I surprise myself because I always doubt myself, which nobody admits, but even us working out every day in CrossFit, you doubt yourself, you get over that point, you achieve it, you get over it, you're like surprise yourself and you're like, wow, I just came out and overcome this diversity.
Totally.
And I feel
by the way,
like
which was living in your mind because your body could do it all along.
Exactly.
But it was all here. I remember I'd gotten to LA and I ran out of money so fast. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to stay. I don't know what this means. And I was kind of upset. And I remember I talked to my dad and I asked him for money. And he goes, I'll say, okay, I'll see what I can do. You know what I mean? And I remember I went to the gym and he was there too. And I was on the Stairmaster and he walked up to me and he gave me $100 bill. And I was like, what am I going to, my reaction, I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with this? Like $100 bill. That's barely cab money home from the airport when I get back kind of a thing. And he was like, this is all I could grab right now, but I hope it helps. And I don't think he understood the context of how much. I'm like, no, I was thinking like $5,000. Like I need a loan. And I remember I was just like, I knew how much that kind of money meant to my dad. And for him, that was a big amount. And I just like thanked him. And I'm like, okay. And then I thought, okay, try not to spend this money. My goal was to not spend dad's 100. And I still have that $100 bill. And I kept it because I was like, okay. And like, I worked, I got hired for something and then I was able to manage. And I stayed out in LA and I stayed for over 10 years, my first run here. And I was like, had my dad given me that 5K,
you would have never built the confidence to overcome.
No way. And that's where we talk about discomfort and overcoming. It could be a CrossFit workout, it can be a financial distress, it can be a conversation that's hard that you have to have with someone you care about. I was like, oh, I can do this. And my friend said this to me a while ago. His name is Neil Kamimura. He's a really fascinating person. His Instagram is RPM Neil, if you want to look him up. But he's a third generation forger, Japanese Hawaiian forger, and he's just one of the best in the world. And he goes, one day he's like, you're a hard worker. You'll always be okay. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, you'll always be able to keep a roof over your head, the water on, that because you work hard. And it just took away this blanket of stress that was sitting on me because I thought, well, what if I don't get back on TV? Like, what if my clients stop touring? What if I kept thinking like, all of these elements around my current career path. And he's like, so bartend. I was like, actually, I was a really good bartender. You know what I mean? And I just kind of created some relief. I'm like, so if all of the
or maybe don't take a cab back from the...
Yeah. But like the reality is like, he's right. I was like, I'll work hard. I will be okay. And it just changed everything for me. Because then the have to and the need to and the what's next.
But don't you think that's what's wrong with the society today?
They're not hard workers?
No, that. And also they don't overcome anything.
Well, what's there to overcome?
there's nothing to overcome.
Right.
So that means I will get to as low as I can, like get out of my own bed.
Right. But it's how we grew up. I remember being in junior high and I was close enough to school. We had to walk. Chicago winters are so cold. My parents were like, deal with it. Wear your boots. It was like a mile each way in a terrible snow. And I just remember thinking, this sucks. How, but I'm like, I'm so much tougher because I was like, I walked in the snow. And it sounds like it's a silly story, but me as an 11 and 12-year-old, like you build this resiliency of completion and doing things and you find yourself like, I mean, I've been scared shitless so many times in my life during travel, during different moments. And I was like, oh, I got this because I've landed on my feet every time. Maybe it didn't go the way I thought it would go, but I've overcame. And so now I think people almost play too safe. They don't step outside the comfort zone and by the way, I understand why. They stay in that fear square, which I have stayed in for parts of my life because things are scary. But then it takes someone to like nudge you or to kind of get you past it. And then you're like, oh, I can do this, like you said in your workout or with me with the money. Like you just have to do things to know who the fuck you are. And I almost think because we're at a time where there was so much provided and there was so much comfort in our culture that like, then you got to actively seek out things that challenge you. And maybe that's why the cold plunge thing became such a fanatical thing. Maybe that's why it blew up because it's a mental toughness thing. Maybe that's why CrossFit blew up because it's like, fuck, this is hard. But people like the way their bodies change, sure, but even more so the way their minds are changing.
Exactly. That's why I don't like rest days because I'm not there for my abs. I don't give a fuck about if it's good or if I get more yoked, if I rest more. Then I don't want to get more yoked.
Yeah.
I'd rather stay small than if I can work out every single day because I can't do a day without feeling.
It's a personal accomplishment. There are the days that I remember, like, especially if I come off tour with a client when I'm traveling, that I'm like tired or I'm jet lagged, whatever. If I go to the gym, even if I'm at 50% capacity, moving slower, going lighter, I feel like I had a good day.
Absolutely.
I accomplished that thing. And it's so wild because I'm like, I don't know why that one thing is that big of a difference. But it's also, we have a community baked in and you have that accountability. And there's the, Jen's home. You know what I mean? Like I feel missed. It's a very Cheers feeling. Do you know the show Cheers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, like people know you. And so there's that element. But if I get that workout in, I'm a different person. And if I don't, it's a dangerous neighborhood in my house.
And then people go a lifetime without working out. And you wonder why they're so miserable.
Yeah, but they don't know what they don't know.
Exactly.
They just don't know.
Like I cannot imagine what that feels like.
But you're a very kinetic person. That's also part of who you are. I know people that are just like, it's not my thing. And they're very happy.
But is it? How? Because you're like, if we didn't all be in this body, I would be like, okay, it's not your thing. Like playing the piano. I don't have a piano strapped on me. I have this body. I cannot escape it. I can't get out of it.
Yeah.
It's only getting older and less useful. And if I don't work out, it will just like the back pain's gonna come if you don't make your back stronger. It will only degrade and get worse.
But I think people just accept that. They think this is what it is.
That's crazy to me.
I know.
And that's where you step in.
Yes.
And that's why fitness is so great.
So powerful.
Because it teaches me gratitude, awareness.
Yes.
Appreciating every moment, presence, anything, really. And also knowing that you're not shit. I know how bad I am, like compared to a CrossFit athlete, like a games athlete. I know, like you say, wow, my inspiration is so great, but I know like it like humbles you in like the most healthy way where it doesn't make me stop doing it.
Right.
But I do know my place and like I do know I'm not the best.
Yeah, but that's okay. But look at Michael Jordan. How many people he inspired that are playing in the league today? As much as people want to say it, no one will be better than Michael Jordan, but they've come close. And your journey is just like that. You're looking up to these men and women in CrossFit. You're closer than you would have ever been had they not existed.
Of course.
Because you see what's possible. And sometimes that's what we need to see. We need to see someone at the top of the summit be like, oh, fuck, there's a path up there? Okay, I'll find it. You know what I mean? And then you go.
And I like when you, like what you said about standing next to like your role model.
Yeah.
When you go to these CrossFit events, I imagine them being like mutants, like literally their thighs, like stretching the pants
Yeah,
and like,
no.
and they're not at
No,
all.
I was in an elevator with Matt Frazier and I had no idea. He just seemed like this sweet little guy. By the way, I was a Division I thrower. So like the men, when I think athletes,
Yeah.
like I was like, there's 6+, couple 100 pounds. I mean,
Yeah.
it's insane that stretching out the thigh thing. And everybody was like, Matt. And I was like, dang it, man. I'm like, really? I mean, I was taller than him. It felt like, at least. I mean, he was, and not like, I thought he would have had a really big upper body and everything. Nah.
And he said the same thing when he was a rookie. He looked at everybody's thighs and he's like, nah, same as me.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all do.
Well, but that's why, people say never meet your heroes. I think you meet them. Like meeting Dana was so important for me. I'm like, you're good. You're fit. You're beautiful. Embrace your muscle. Like that was a big gift from her and her husband to me when I met them that weekend.
It takes that pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
Like me meeting my idols was like, oh, I can do that. Before it's like unachievable, right? But then when you do meet them, you can see it as like a letdown, but you can also see it as like confidence, kind of like where you're like, they're not superhumans.
They're just human.
They're just like you and me. I thought she was this and that, but you meet them and you're like, and then you almost get like a disrespect where you're like,
it's not disrespect,
not a disrespect, but like
such
such a boost of like, I remember I was in Berlin. I was always behind the lens. I was like Justin Bieber hair in the face until I met a couple celebrities, and I was like, that's what you guys are like. This is what you're doing. You influence that many people,
huh? Oh yeah.
I was like, shit. Like if then I can do this.
But
easy.
you have so much courage. There's something in you that I'm trying to grasp, and maybe one day I'll figure it out. But you're able to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that, and I'm like, oh, I don't know why I would try to do that.
Is it taking yourself like just not too serious?
In fact, I think it's the opposite. And my mentor said this to me because I was going back to school to get my master's in psychology because I'm writing my next book and I'm working on this documentary. And I just was like, I know a lot, but is there more I need to know? And he's like, and I've talked about Brene Brown, who's a really prolific researcher and storyteller. And she's done so much great stuff in the work of psychology. Anyway, he goes, and I was bringing her up and he goes, what's the difference between you and Brene Brown? I was like, well, she's a PhD. She's a monster of thought. Like, she's such a great teacher. He's like, no. He's like, she believes that what she has to say needs to be heard. That's it. And it kind of like shocked me. And I'm like, I don't know why I don't feel that way. But you are like, yeah, of course. Let's talk to this.
You don't feel that way?
I know what I have to say is very important, but maybe I'm too shy or...
But if you're 200 people...
Oh, yeah.
You rather make less money.
Here's the thing. When I did Biggest Loser, it was a perfect scenario for me because all I had to do was be me. I could be the coach. I could speak to them and they were my priority. And if you want 6 cameras in the room and you want to capture it and you want to cut it and you want to put it on TV, that was fine because I got to do what I do best and let the world see it however it came out. And I was very successful because of that. So for me, I don't know, like, I don't have these superlatives that I want to say. I'm more of a reactionary coach. So like, you come to me with what's going on, I know how to care for you. Let's tease this out. Let's figure that out. And so being in a live coaching situation where it was captured and produced and put out there is the best case scenario for me. And so now to be in a position, I'm like, I know what I have to say is valuable, but I'm not going to chase people down. And what's difficult with where social media is, and we're kind of overlapping our conversation from before, but I'm Jen Widerstrom. I'm someone that has been in this business for 20 years, that loves people, that's successful with people, that takes care of people. And I don't need to be on TV to be a good coach, but I do want to help more people. And I don't know how to get my hand up in the crowd of now an inundated wellness community where everyone's a coach and everyone's a trainer. And, how do I, like, how do I say something that they're not already saying? Like, it's all the same shit regurgitated. It's I always say it's exercise science. It's not rocket science. You know what I mean? But what I do really well is I facilitate information and I take fear away from the journey and I make sense of it all. I'm really good at personalizing a journey and making, and getting the information that's swimming around it, that's, filling this tank and targeting it for people. But I don't want to chase people down. And so I'm just like, I know what I want to say, but like it's the courage to like get it down on paper, put it in those pages. And I'm just like, oh, I don't know. So I guess maybe not. Maybe I don't feel like they have to hear it. Maybe that's my fear talking.
Probably.
Maybe it's fear of like it not being good enough, not people not liking it. I don't know. People not getting it. But you don't have that fear. You're like, oh, I'm not in shape at high school. I'm going to get in shape. You're like, those people are influencers. I'm going to be one.
I don't know. I always wondered about that.
You
and I
just
always wondered why my brother is not like me. I wonder to this day, I cannot grasp why he doesn't want to be in shape, why he doesn't want to be with the prettiest girl, why he doesn't want to make $1 million. I don't understand. Like why not? Right? Or like,
but that's why, like
why are you happy with
your brother
me?
and I ask why, and you say why not?
But why are you mediocre? Why not the best? Like when I do this podcast, I'm gonna be the podcast. There is nobody who's gonna do it like me, and I'm gonna do it better than everybody because only me can do what I do.
Correct.
And
I agree with that.
And there's no point in doing it if I don't want to be the best.
Yeah.
But then also I do CrossFit and I know I'm not going to win the games. But that's not what I do it for. I do it to do it because I love doing it.
Right.
But then also with the podcast, I love doing it and being in conversations. And of course, it's great to be the first, but also it's not. And when I created Candy Can, when I let go of Jacob, which I used to be for 22 years, I told myself, I'd rather go down as Candy Can. I'll die alone, broke, with no woman, no family, with no money. I'd rather end up homeless than not doing it at all, like not trying it and not putting everything on one card and giving it my all. Because I've never met or saw anyone ever putting everything they had in one place and not succeeding, especially in a world of cowards and where people are so soft and where people compare themselves constantly. And just like when I told my brother I'm going to do a podcast, he said, everybody's doing a podcast now. I was like,
so?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Right? Or when you say there's so many fitness influencers.
Yeah.
You can say that about any. There's so many bakers. There's so many plumbers. What are you saying, really? There's a lot of bad fitness influencers.
Majority are.
Yes, that's what's really happening.
I think I just feel like I don't want to play the game anymore. I think that's where I feel fed up. With like, okay.
But you don't think you can do you?
I can do me. I am doing me. But how do I do, how do we reach people now? How do I reach people as a coach now that I'm not in TV? And the way social media is algorithm, like unless you're paying $100,000 a month in ads, people aren't seeing what you have to say, right? So
I think it's being unapologetically. Look at David Goggins. I would call him the #1 fitness influencer. Not any of these like freaking clowns, these testosterone clowns.
Yeah.
When I look at the fitness influencers, I'm very confused because they're.
So is the world.
Yeah, it's very confusing to me. And when I look at David Goggins, and he has done like, I don't know, 2 podcasts But his message, he said, it gives me goosebumps. He's like, I used to speak like without like intent. I can't even give him justice, but like he said, everything I speak now has purpose and meaning. Everything I say, and I'm far from that point, but that's why I'm doing this podcast, to speak with meaning.
Yeah.
And being unapologetic and calling things out, like putting fat people in commercials. And we've gotten so far from that, and we even talk soft now. We try to not hurt anybody's feeling.
Yeah.
We try to be so cute and nice to everybody that you can't even talk freely anymore or have an opinion or even say like that you like something or some political.
You're afraid to say what you like. You're
Yes,
afraid to tell
to
someone
get
if you're
canceled.
vaccinated or not. You're afraid to say you hate this coffee shop. You're like, oh, because it's owned by Jewish people. You hate Jewish people. You're like, no, I just don't like the coffee there. It's
Exactly.
like, yeah.
But then they just clip that, take that apart, and you're canceled right away. So there's this, we speak in fear almost.
Yes.
And I think as a fitness influencer or as any profession, I think when you are truly unapologetically you stand alone. There's no competition. David Goggins doesn't have a competition. There is nobody. Like,
okay, so I'll push back on this one. So I agree. I am me. You followed me for a little bit. You see what I post. I don't post like tons, but like you see the way I coach. You see the way I'm doing. I think for me, where I started to get a little underwater is like I was putting all this energy or content towards social media, which I know is important for keeping people engaged and all that stuff. And it is a form of helping people. Like there's inspirational things that you can post. But I was not giving anything to my app. The people that are paying to be in my community. And I'm like, that's who I want to invest in. That was the choice I made. And so I realized by not investing in Instagram, I'm getting less eyes on me, so therefore less people going in. But then the people in this group, I feel so connected to, and I feel so proud of the work I'm doing and proud of them as humans. So that's where I've taken my energy and effort, and it's pure and it feels really good and it feels sustainable. Like I could coach in that app forever, and I could not do that social media thing forever. Like I was really getting strung out. Like I had someone that was helping my social media, like, okay, we need 5 pictures of your food. We need 4 videos on blank and blank. And I was like,
maybe the eyes is not the goal. I think David Goggins would never say like he wants to have a certain amount of Instagram followers.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more, what role do you play in other people's life?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's 200 or 200,000.
The way I look at it, and here's what's hard, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Like,
because that sickens you, and also you become a person of the algorithm.
Yeah.
I've met people that like their whole personality is now the algorithm, which is sickening.
And like I don't want a single more follower. In fact, the people that, if you don't like me, please unfollow. It's not about that number, but it's the way, like the best example, and maybe this is unfair, but Hugh Jackman, we were talking about him earlier.
Mm-hmm.
He's an actor and an artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not like, he's got millions of followers because people just like love his work, and through seeing his work, they love Hugh. And he just posts random things, like nothing's curated. Sometimes it's as part of his work. I mean, it's the most basic Instagram page, and people love it. I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like, I'm giving you pieces of my world because of the greater work that I do. And I think because, being off TV, it's seeing the work I do is less accessible. And then that's where like there was like a ascension, the hose, so to speak. So it's like, well, Hugh Jackman's doing Broadway shows and he's on movies. And so his work is still out in the public. Whereas for me, like I'm just as private as Hugh Jackman. I'm just as capable. I'm the best at what I do. I always joke, I'm like the best at what I do in my career field. I may not be the best for every person, but I know what I offer is high. And that's Hugh Jackman, but like his work is still going, and mine is like it almost needs a new platform to be exposed on. And the world is just different. Like TV is not the same. Like, podcasts are
Maybe
great. This is a great thing, but I did a Beachbody program and it blew up. Like people love it. And like, I'm like, okay, that's a platform. But like, that's, the, but they hired me for one. So it's like, unless I do program after program, how do I start to build that community up? Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
it does make sense.
So
I
it's just an
think,
interesting thing.
yeah, maybe it's just like not like my brother told me this, like these three things where unhappiness comes from. It's comparing yourself
Yep.
to other people. Then the other one is that you think you can making other people happy
Mm-hmm.
and caring about like what other people think about you.
Oh,
And I think maybe you just care too much about what other people think.
are you a psychologist? Yes, 100%.
No, and that like ruins it then, because then you do things with positive feedback instead of doing things because you want to do them. Like,
Oh, man.
you know what I'm saying? Like you say the beach body thing, like people like that, but you don't like that.
No, I mean, I loved it, but like I did one program for the platform and that's all they wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they own the program. It continues to go. They continue to sell memberships with that program. But I'm like, it was a place. I mean, I loved it. It was like my best. It's like live coaching.
Mhm.
It's a follow along program. The messages I get, the people that complete it, they're just so happy. And I'm like, okay, so then how do in my app, I'm teaching live every week and they get that but it's like, how do I let more people know that what's happening on Beachbody is happening in my app twice a week, And it's that platform thing. But I do agree with you. If I cared less about what they thought.
I think you should completely. That's what I've always done.
We should have a brainstorm.
That's why I did fingernails. I dressed all pink. It's not because I like pink or because even this background and everything. It was always more first of all, a flex that I'm so masculine. I can do all these female things and I can still be more of a man than everybody judging that.
Yeah.
But also because I actually have no idea who I am. I tell my brother this always: stop telling yourself that you know who you are, because you have no idea, and that always limits your potential if you try to capture it. Same with like what you said, like if the more we are like, you are this, I am podcaster, TikToker, social media star. No, I have no idea who I am.
Oh man, that's
it's a daily journey.
Yeah.
And every day is different. That's why people land in jail, because they make one wrong decision. And that's what they think they are for the rest of the 20 years they have to sit. No, like it's more complex.
Yes.
And you have a choice, and you need to make the right choice every day, because you make it wrong, you end up in jail, or you do something horrific that's gonna...
Well, or how about this? I mean, maybe it's not a big event. Maybe it's small choices that steer you away of where you want to go with your life. I mean,
it's
you talk
all
about
those little small choices.
Well, because like
you lose yourself.
I thought about this with social media. Okay, I was like, maybe this is my fear. It's like people get rewarded based on likes or follows or views, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when someone has a post that does well, you think, oh, I'll do another post like that. So if we don't know who we are, but we start shaping who we are on social media,
you lose yourself.
We lose ourselves.
Because you become what they are.
Correct. Or who they want me to be.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is what I'm fighting or afraid of.
But I wouldn't stop looking at it. Just create.
I did. I have, everything's hidden. All my likes, and I'm like, I don't know.
I wouldn't. It makes you really lose yourself. And I've dated girls that created a persona of themselves that they are not. And she was like a rich person with all the followers you can imagine, but she put up a persona that she cannot keep up with.
Right.
And she hates that person.
And hates that, yeah.
But she plays that person every day. And that really creates this like mental unhappiness and this mental sickness is when you pretend to be somebody that you're not. And that also makes you go in a relationship or in a marriage. If you pretend who you are, it will never work out. And the other person is going to find out sooner or later. If it takes like a month or 3 years.
Yeah.
But you can only, like, people always say be yourself, but That is very
It's-
trappy because
Yeah.
who you think you are is not really who you are because
Well-
you're very fear. Like when my brother tells me who he thinks he is, it's everything. His fear talks to me because he puts himself down
Yeah, but don't you think you have like a true nature about you?
within.
Sure.
That's where I like. That's what I
You know,
I
like-
cannot answer because like that's what when you're saying like what makes me me, I try to understand. My story is I was 10 years the only child, then my brother came. So now my parents don't pay no attention to me. So now I have to do something to shine, to get the attention away from him, even though I love him with all my heart. But this is like my story. That's why I created Candy Can and tried to be, always wanted to be famous because I don't get no more attention, so I get it somewhere else.
Mm.
But I'm very aware of that
Mhm.
and also thankful for that because
Sure.
that gave me that drive to shine.
Yeah. So then, but there's still part of a true nature that like I think is a part of it. Is like my funny story is I was talking with I have a therapist and she and I were talking about relationships and people, and I'm like, listen, I'm an oak tree. I am like rooted, grounded, strong, a little stubborn at times, maybe a little prickly, you know what I mean? But like I am this support structure. And the people I tend to gravitate towards and fall in love with and are my best friends are willow trees. They're more relaxed and fluid and soften my stubbornness. And she's like eating an apple and she takes a big bite and she goes, please, Jen, you have roots of a daisy. And I started to just weep and then laugh because I thought, she's like, you built an oak tree, but you're a daisy. And my true nature is quite delicate, is quiet, is more shy and reserved. And whether it's because we're small, like you brought up, growing up, or you're bullied and you're through school, or you have to find a voice or a way or attention or acknowledgement, or you go through this process and you armor up, and my armor looked like an oak tree. And that's...
So you identify, but you protect yourself.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, that's not who I am. I'm a daisy. And I'm actually...
But maybe you're not a daisy. It's not that simple. I don't believe
I see what you mean. Yeah, I see what
both.
you mean.
You're the oak tree and the daisy. I
Yeah.
don't see it like your therapist. I hate these.
You know, yeah.
You're being this tough girl, but you're actually a sweetheart inside you, obviously. Because you're multiple.
Yeah.
You speak
You can
different with
be it
your
all.
parents than you are
Yeah.
with me. You're different at the gym than you are in a bank. I don't know. Like, if you don't think you have multiple personalities, then you're just unaware.
Oh, finally someone's giving me permission. I think I do have multiple personalities.
Some are just like blending all together,
Yeah.
and some are very unoutlived and
Yeah.
like depressed.
Yeah.
Like when they say like your feminine side is like maybe in like a very toxic masculine guy, it's a very depressed feminine side that he still has in him though. Because when I tell my brother go to CrossFit, he wants it.
Yeah.
There's something in him.
I mean, the
he's
fact that he's going
Yeah.
is great.
So
I
I
mean,
think-
he was there without you today.
Exactly. So to like simplify somebody as a daisy is again just trying to be like, hey, I know who you are. When it's actually no, you choose daily, but
If
you
I'm gonna be
need
an
to
oak
make that
tree or a
choice.
daisy.
Stop making it by the wind.
Yeah.
Stop just let life happen to you. Stop the bullshit. Choose specifically because we're so random with everything, with our
Yeah.
partners, how we spend our life, with what movie we watch. We accept the bullshit and of other people, and we're like, yeah, okay. We want to be accepted. You want to be a part of something bigger, so you accept the bullshit instead of standing up for what you believe in. As for right now,
Yeah.
because in 5 years you'll look back at this interview and you'll be like, oh my god,
I mean, 5 years. How about 5 months?
yeah.
That's how fast things change
Exactly. And I know that I will look back at this and I'll be like, shit, did I really say that?
now.
You know, but that's okay.
But here's the difference. It's not about getting, being right. It's about getting it right. We have to just allow ourselves to change our mind, allow new information, new ideas to be exposed into our worlds. It's a great quote, but I forgot the guy's first name, last name, or Alan something. It says, true listening is your willingness to let someone change you. And I thought, am I listening and letting myself be changed? Am I dying on this mountain of whatever idea or image I have of myself? And it's like, no, be adaptable, but allow yourself to just get it right. And every day I can make different choices. Every day I can change my mind. Whatever I said last Monday, maybe I'm like, I'm actually wrong about that. I don't think that. And that's okay. Like we're allowed, but I think it's going back to the way we've been structured, and maybe that's the way I was brought up. You know what I mean? Like my family was very like much more rigid and strict. So like whatever was said had to be it, and they were like as parents embarrassed to say that they were wrong. Ultimately, I'm like, it's okay, just say that you're wrong. And so now that my ability to admit that I'm wrong or I changed my mind took years to get to, but I'm here.
Absolutely, and I think that's where podcasting or just talking to people comes very powerful.
I agree.
Because you have the self-reflection, you have the reflection of each another, and you have then when you watch it later on, you'll have another reflection of your old you, which also can be very beautiful and refreshing. So I think ultimately it's just that we have to have a collective. And that's why I love podcasts, because when I listen to podcasts, since you mentioned the news, it's the only way I can get information that is not triggered by an advertiser. Since when Facebook is going to write a certain thing that the advertiser doesn't agree with, they're just going to blend it out, which I understand from that point, from a financial business point. But then I need to go somewhere else for my information. So when I listen to Joe Rogan or some other podcasts, I can get scientists, I can get people from each side talk about the same thing. Somebody that is against global warming, somebody that is for global warming, pro. And he also says you have to follow people from, you can't be in this bubble where you have one belief and one belief only. So it's also really, I love that. So you follow Trump, but you also follow Biden, and then you can just because it's so weird to think that you can only have one opinion from one party when it's much more complex, just like you and me, where you can have opinions where you disagree with one thing and you agree from another thing, and it shouldn't be just like two parties where it's just either this or either that.
Yeah, of course. Gosh, I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but I do like where you're going with that.
And also I feel like people don't talk to each other anymore. Like I cannot sit down with you and have this convo just without the cameras and the microphones, because it would just be, especially when you don't know each other, it's like, it's not going to happen, right? We're not going to sit down on a coffee place and I will just talk to you intensely.
But maybe that's the power of this podcast, is that it puts us in we held the time. We had moved the date a little bit. We got to spend more time getting to know each other in the process, and held this time for a conversation because we were recording it. But I would have gladly done this without. If you're like, hey, do you want to get a coffee sometime? I would have absolutely done it. And I think the beauty of podcasts is because the cameras are rolling the way you performed on your deadlifts better, gives us a chance to really preserve space to go where the conversation will go and enjoy this deepening of our friendship and learning and getting perspectives. So that's the beauty of it. I mean, I have a podcast that I've been kind of tinkering with for a little while, and I just do these 10-minute meditative coaching sessions, and it's just me working through an idea, and it's therapeutic for me to do. And if I wasn't doing it, I wouldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? So even though I'm not interviewing anyone or talking to anyone, I'm there with myself and I'm taking a note or an experience or something that came up in my week, and I just get it down. I just hit record. And I'm like, so this is the thing, and this is what I was thinking, and this is where my brain went. And it's fun for me to listen back to be like, oh, I don't even remember saying that. I don't know if that happens to you.
All the time.
Yeah. So
all the time.
So perhaps this
because
is,
you're so present.
Yes.
You already forgot what you said 10 minutes ago.
It's like you're channeling. So maybe, I wouldn't kick yourself too hard that if we weren't recording, it wouldn't happen. So what? It is happening because of it, and that's what's cool.
No, that's why I think everybody doing a podcast is great, because everybody's like, oh my God, the attention span, blah, blah, blah. But then you have on the other spectrum, you have these 3-hour podcasts that are intense. Oh my God,
Huberman. I have to listen to it in 4 parts.
Yeah? Oh, you can speed it up. Do you ever do that?
Yes, but there's so much information that I'm like,
Oh
wait,
yeah.
what did he say? And I'll back up the 10 seconds.
I
But
know.
yeah, I don't know. I do it on Audible as well.
Okay.
Well,
What
this is
about Joe Rogan?
I haven't done a lot of Joe.
No,
I haven't done a lot of Joe.
you got to do some Joe, because like
I
everything
think it's
changed.
just because it's so long.
I know, but you can just start it, and then
My brother sends me Joe stuff.
Mhm.
I'll
Like
send
that's
me,
the only reason
send me
I do
one,
podcasts.
Send me one to try.
Okay.
Send me one to try.
The Kennedy one. That one, you should start with that one.
The which one?
Kennedy.
Okay, let me look it up real quick.
He's running for president. His
Oh.
uncle.
You mean Robert Kennedy Jr.?
Yes, Robert
Oh,
Kennedy Jr.
No, and he's interviewed?
Yes.
Okay. He's only on Spotify now, right? We're
When
plugging.
you listen to it, I was like, I cannot believe they're letting this go. Like that I can actually, that like, how is this online? It feels like it shouldn't be online. And I know on YouTube, they take all his stuff away. So Spotify, based in the Netherlands, I think, has a beautiful way where it doesn't get censored. So you'll be able to listen to it. Everybody, please check out the Kennedy Joe Rogan podcast.
I don't know where it is. I'll look it up. I'll find it.
I'll have the link for you.
Okay, send it to me.
Yeah, but like Joe Rogan, that's the reason I do podcasts, because like when my son came in my life, there's all this time where I have to be awake for him, but he doesn't interact with me. Where I have to like feed him, or I have to just watch
well
him.
said. Yeah. And so you're hanging out with Joe while you're hanging out with your
I
son.
put my AirPod in and I educate myself in all these time off where I cannot work out. I have to be there for my family, but I can also just not sit there
Totally.
and put him to sleep for hours in the dark, not doing anything. And I can't watch a movie. So audio is insane, because you get all this information, you get all these scientists, just like the weirdest people on there, which I love so much.
I think I listened to a mushroom one once.
Yes, that's another. He loves mushrooms. This guy loves it.
Okay.
So
I feel bad. I've got to wrap up here, but I feel like do you let guests come back?
Of course.
Can this be part one?
Of course.
I just thought of 4 more things I wanted to say to you, but this has been brilliant.
No, keep them, because it's not only like you come and you tell your life story. It's supposed to be like how Joe Rogan does it, where you talk about like what's going on right now. What are your thoughts right now? What are you thinking about? It's just interesting conversations with interesting people.
Yeah.
And also out of every region, we had like a dentist, and we're going to have like a beauty doc. And like,
didn't you say Sam Dancer is going to come on?
Yeah, Sam Dancer told me he's so down.
Wonderful man. Yeah.
Because I feel
great
like,
story again, a non-traditional CrossFitter. Like traditional, but in the way that like he's done it for a long time, but non in the way that he's had such a different, non-intimidating take on it. And I can't wait to listen to that conversation.
Love it.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much. And I can't wait. This felt really short to me. So
that's a good thing.
It's really cool.
Thank you
Really
so
cool.
much for having me. I feel bad. I feel like I went on some tangents and I took you on a ride, but I really appreciate the space that you create here and the time you've held for me and your willingness to just like bring me into your world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We'll be back. Thank you for listening. See you soon.